So a lot of people have been asking me to get to this weapon for quite a long time. The Black Knight Greatsword is one of the heaviest hitting greatswords or ultra greatswords in the game, dealing pure physical damage. It most likely will output the maximum amount of damage possible in terms of damage per hit to an opponent, minus the opponent's defense versus your attack rating. Because it does pure physical, most of the time it's going to output the most damage. However, the sword does have a drawback in my opinion. Again, this is just personal opinion. I am not so much a fan of the overhead vertical striking attack, as you can see there. It can definitely hit opponents still. I mean, it's not terrible, but I just personally prefer the diagonal swing down. But check this out right here. Don't really know what occurred, I mean, whatever. But yeah, all right, we'll deal with that. But the reason I don't like the vertical swing, you can see here enemies are rolling around me because the sword, it's going to hit in one straight line in front of you. And for the most part, it's generally easy to roll once to either side to avoid the hit. Now, that's usually not the case when you use a different Ultra Greatsword like the Lothric Greatsword or the Astora's Greatsword. Because they have the diagonal downward swing, you're most likely going to catch a roll because it has a better angle. The second matchup, going against a super tryhard again, using the Karthus Curve Sword, where they do the troll blocking thing, and yeah, this guy's super good. So we dance around for a good, a minute or so before he finally comes in and decides to attack me. And then, of course, just playing the matchup the way it's supposed to be played, we're going to out-trade him, just like I've talked about countless times whenever I review ultra-hitting weapons, and people say that they're not top tier. While they're not top tier for a general, just overarching, can use against anything, they are good in certain matchups and against certain playstyles. So this guy, he obviously realized that he could not contest us, and I guess, he wanted to go home. So he just ends up going home because he realized that he already lost that match. And yeah, so I clapped for him, and we're going to wait for the next matchup to occur. Some kind of strange stuff happened in this fight club, but whatever. Now, the reason that you'd want to use this weapon, and by no means is it a bad weapon, I just prefer the other moveset. This sword still has the rolling R1, which is the thrust, which is really good. It can be parried. The R2 isn't really that good. I mean, it's not something you're going to really whip out all that often. It's slow and it's easy to dodge compared to the Lothric or Astora's Greatsword R2, which is the charged thrust. Like you saw right there, the rolling R1 is the same kind of thrust. But in general, this sword is really only going to be good for its R1. And while some of you may say, oh, but you can do that combo with the R1 into R2. Yeah, but that's not really practical. And if you're going to try to go for that and it's going to be inconsistent, there's no point, right? Just go for your two R1s. You're going to kill somebody in two combos anyways, for the most part. As you can see, the nice thing about this weapon is its damage output, and you're most likely hitting people for 800 to 1,000 points maybe of damage for every two R1 hits, like every combo. So most of the time people won't have more than 1801 HP at most. So, two combos is going to kill most people. So you just have to land two hits. Not to mention you might get stray hits in here and there, especially from rolling opponents. Now, in this next battle, I mean, I don't know. This guy is just going to try to play the dodging game, I guess, with his composite bow. I don't know. So, I mean, people, I don't really know what to say about this. I mean, when you're going up against an ultra weapon, if you're playing on the defensive, it's most likely not going to go too well for you unless you know how to properly bait attacks. And what you've seen me do, I think, in a few of the earlier clips, and if not, you'll see it probably in the later clips, is if I am rushing down an opponent with an ultra weapon, and they're waiting for me to attack before they approach me, you still have an advantage with some ultra weapons, this one being one of the ones because it has the rolling R1 poke. If you throw out your standard R1, it misses, then an opponent tries to rush you down, you can just roll back and throw out the R1 and you'll likely catch them. I think you'll actually see it in this match. I don't really remember how I beat this guy, but oh yeah, here he thinks he can punish me, but yeah, no, we're gonna go for the trade there, and then it's gonna be another runaway segment for another minute. So I'm gonna speed this section up. But it's really good to bait out opponents with some ultra weapons if they think that they can rush you down after you attack. You just have to manage your stamina well, and that's the real trick with this weapon. Since it's going to be kind of a task to hit people with the standard R1, since it only covers a straight line in front of you. If an enemy rolls to the side, they're likely going to avoid the hit. I mean, it's great if an enemy is going to come in and try to contest you. You can obviously whip out the R1 and out-trade your opponents, which you've seen me do in this montage so far. But for the most part, if you're playing enemies that are being super defensive and trying to play more reactive to you, you're going to have to, play that baiting game, so to speak. So throw out your R1. If you miss, roll back. The enemy thinks they can chase you down. Roll back and then throw out your R1. Again, manage your stamina so you still have enough stamina to keep rolling or play defensive when you have thrown out your attack and the enemy is rushing you down, just in case your fallback plan doesn't work where you roll back and throw out the R1 poke. So there's a number of things you can do, but in a previous video, I think my S-Doc Turtle video, I mentioned one of the ways to counter the shield is by using a Shodel. So this guy, I mean, even though he wasn't technically blocking because he was just rolling, trying to roll through every attack, but the Shodel still does have a pretty good attacking arc. So you can see there as he tried to roll through, he still caught him on his roll and finished him off with that Shodel as he was just trying to run away for some odd reason. I don't know why people were playing so weird tonight. It was a strange phenomenon for sure. But in this matchup here, yeah, that happened. So he buffs his weapon, then he casts Warcry, which cancels out his buff. I don't know if he knew that or if he did that by accident. And right there, I actually thought I would have caught him, so I followed up with the R1. I mashed R1 a little bit. Probably shouldn't have done that, or I should have initiated my attack sooner, but I just wanted to be safe. Luckily, he rolled back and he couldn't punish us anyways. But you don't want to be making mistakes like that and overcommitting when you don't need to. So there I tried to bait out an R2, but it didn't work. And here I'm going to let the guy rebuff just in case he made that mistake earlier on. But we're going to see in a heavy weapons battle how it's going to go. So if you're using a shield against an ultra weapon, it's probably not going to go too well for you. I would really only use shields against medium and smaller weapons. Since heavier weapons are easier to react to, roll through and stuff like that, I wouldn't really recommend using a shield because if you're like below 100% stamina, you risk getting guard broken with like a standard R1 attack. So I wouldn't run that risk. You're just going to have to learn how to dodge, essentially. And it's not too hard. You're going to see me, I think, roll through pretty much every single one of this guy's attacks. I think there's maybe one section of this fight where we actually end up trading blows, which, again, I'm totally fine with because, I know my weapon will probably do more damage because it's raw physical and it has very, very, very high physical AR. Probably, I actually think it's the highest physical AR weapon that I currently have, or it might even be the highest physical AR weapon in the game. So, it can definitely deal the damage, but in my opinion, the moveset, is what is its biggest drawback in my opinion. And I know some people prefer the vertical swing to the diagonal one, and that's just personal preference. I personally find that the diagonal swing with an ultra great sword and the charged R2 thrust gives the weapon a lot more versatility. Not to mention this one, the Black Knight Greatsword, the weapon art is, I think, pretty useless. It's not the stomp, right? It's like the swinging 360 motion. Like I don't know. It's kind of weird. So yeah, this match ended up being flawless. As you can see, we reacted pretty much to every single one of his attacks with a great axe. So they're not too hard to evade, ultra weapons. And if you are using an ultra weapon and you notice somebody being super evasive, you're gonna have to switch from that aggressive game to the baiting game. You're going to have to try to convince your opponent that it's safe for them to come in and punish you, and then you're going to have to go in for the trade or do something along those lines. Kind of like what I'm doing with this guy to some degree, but you can also do it against smaller weapons. Hopefully that makes sense. If not, let me know. I mean, I've talked about ultra weapons quite a bit on my channel. I've reviewed a lot of the weapons. Hell, when the game first came out, I said that, and the Lothric Greatsword, the Ultra Greatsword, was probably the best weapon for PvP just because of how consistent it was. I don't think people really understood how much hyper armor that weapon had and how it was so easy to get trades and come out on top on virtually every exchange you would have with an opponent. Now, as Dark Souls 3 has evolved, this game is not as trade heavy as Dark Souls 2 was. If this game was as trade heavy as Dark Souls 2 but had the mechanics of Dark Souls 3, by far ultra weapons would be amazing because, like I said in Dark Souls 2, a big part of the competitive or more competitive PvP in the arena was knowing that if you go in for an attack, your opponent's likely going to trade with you. So in this fight club, we ended up going home here because there was no more black phantoms or red phantoms left to fight, so I wasn't going to wait around for this guy to summon more. But I'm just going to play off a few more clips. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. If you want to see more or a more in-depth analysis of something else, let me know as well. Thank you again for watching, guys, and drop a like on the video if you could. I would really appreciate it. It really helps. And yeah, subscribe if you're not already if you want to see more Dark Souls content. But that's it. Quantum is out.